I want to talk about the importance of having a purpose that transcends our entire life, that allows us to live out our purpose, whether it's from one job to another, from one relationship to something else. When all our purpose eggs are in one basket and then that basket disappears, it can be a bit of an existential crisis for us as a person. But by shaping and grounding and building a foundational purpose that transcends any one thing that we might do, it gives us stability and strength that we wouldn't have otherwise. And the alternative is to lack that, and it can have very severe consequences for you in your life. So I'm going to share a story with you, and then I want to talk more about the purpose and also just how that purpose integrates with our identity, and how when we lose our identity, how traumatic and consequential it can be for us. Once I've shared this story, then I'll do some reflection on this story and tease out some of the layers in a more specific and explicit way that's not so mysterious. So let's jump in. So several years ago, this is probably a decade ago by now, I got together with somebody, and this person had retired from a large corporation. And this large corporation had a team, and he was part of this team of 5 people. And this team of people, they would go to different locations of this business around the country that were not performing well. And so they would go into those locations and they would turn it around. So they were a consulting turnaround team for different parts of the business. And they were really good at what they did. They were really effective. And when they walked into the room, they got people's attention because they had authority to make changes. People listened to what they had to say. They were also people that fired and hired people. So they had like real consequential decision-making abilities. And they were successful at what they did. Now, the problem was that their job, their purpose, was derived from their work to such a degree that their entire life revolved around their jobs. And they would work sometimes up to 80 hours per week, 7 days a week, every day. And this person that I met with, it was so bad for him and his wife that eventually he just came home to a note on their table that said, "I can't do this anymore. I'm sorry. Goodbye." And that's how he learned that he was getting divorced. So it completely wrecked his marriage. But more importantly, at even a higher level, his entire identity and purpose was derived from this job, and as it was for all of 5 of them. So as they were getting closer to retirement, HR brought them in and told them, based on your position, how involved you are in your work, what you're doing, when you retire, there is a high likelihood that when you leave, you're going to face an existential crisis, and within a couple years, you're going to die. You're going to pass away. And they all laughed it off and said, no, like, we'll be fine. We'll go fishing and play golf, and we'll just have a wonderful retirement. And so they didn't take that seriously. So those final 2 years come and go, and they all retire. And 6 weeks after they retired, after they did their fishing and golfing, they started calling each other up and said, "I don't know what to do." And they were feeling what HR told them, which was a sense of purposelessness, a loss of identity, a loss of power. All of these benefits that they got by working for this corporation were now gone. Now, when they walked into a room, nobody cared. Nobody knew them. They had no authority, so nobody cared what they had to say. And so all of a sudden, they went from this very strong position of power, identity, and purpose, and now they were nothing. So 2 years had passed, and I think I met this person about 4 years after that. So he said about 2 years in, 2 of the 5 people had passed away. One of the other 2 guys had some form of cancer and was not doing well, and it looked like his life was coming to an end. And then the other guy was also in bad health, although not as severe. And out of the 5 people, he was the only one that was healthy and continued on with his life. One of the things that he did is he started another business. He started a company that gave him another sense of purpose. It gave him something to do, a mission to participate in, and hopefully a community to create accountability towards moving towards goals and a vision. When his work ended, he started something new, and that gave him something to live for. And when you don't have something to live for, when you don't have a purpose, then dying is what we do. We die when there's nothing left for us to do, when there's nothing left for us to hold on to. This story, it resonated with me, and now a decade later, it's still something that I sit with and think about and share with people, because it's just such a powerful picture of how much our identity can be tied into our specific role at a particular company, and how much, when that ends, how devastating it can be to us. But also how important it is to build an identity and a purpose that transcends that one job or that one company. And also to be clear about what it is, like who is it that I want to be, and what's the story I want to tell, and what's the purpose that I want to live. I moved from Arizona to Atlanta in 2005, and life was chaotic. It was a mess. I struggled. It was ups and downs. Me and my wife moved here together, tried to start a company, went to college, lots of challenges. And I struggled. I got distracted by all kinds of toxic distractions, internally, externally, in the business, in a variety of outlets. And I was floundering, and my life was chaotic. And I had to go through this exercise of really figuring out what is my purpose. And I inherited a lot of things when I grew up, and many healthy insights and mentorship and community. And so those informed me and those helped me. But I really had to take ownership. I had to self author, like for myself. Who was I? What was the story I wanted to tell? And what was the purpose I was going to live out? And so I started writing, like, what's my mission statement? What's my purpose statement? And so I ended up coming up with a purpose statement. And for me, it's really grounded in my Christian faith. My purpose statement is to embrace the life of Jesus, the life that he lived, so the example that he set, and then the life that he gave. And so he came to earth to save us, to give us his life, so we may shed our fear of death and have eternal life in him and with him, even beyond this life. I no longer need to fear death because I have a purpose that transcends my life here on this earth. And that's a liberating idea, but it's also important to see Jesus as our example, and the life that he lived, the generosity, the love, the care, the leadership that he embodied. That too is something that we as Christians have access to, for him to shape that in us in the particular way that he's created me and he's created you. And then my mission statement is to share life. And it's to both to give life, the life that I have, it's to give it to others. And then it's to receive life from the other people in my life that have something to give. So it's a mutual giving and receiving relationship, which is really how God works. God is a mutually giving and receiving being, and we are invited to participate in that. And he makes a way through Jesus and through the sacrifice on the cross. And my vision statement is that we are thriving together. And so those three facets, to embrace the life of Jesus, to share life, and to thrive together, that is a framework that no matter what I'm doing, whether it's in my marriage or my parenting or my freelancing or in my content creation here, whatever I'm doing, that is my guiding force. That is driving me. And so when these superficial things, when my work changes, when I get a new client, when something happens in my life, it's always about accommodating my situation to live out that purpose, mission, and vision. And no matter what circumstances come my way, no matter what challenges I face, no matter what successes I have, I always have to ground it into this purpose, mission, and vision. And sometimes it's going to look different than I expect. Sometimes it's going to be different than I want. And sometimes, there is tragic elements of reality. And those are things we have to accept. But in that acceptance, I know that I can live this out in that situation, even if it's hard, and towards that greater vision. And so I leave that with you to think about when you think about your life and your purpose and your work and your relationships. Do you have that type of purpose? Do you have that type of clarity? And if you don't, take the time to think through that and to discover that. Because without it, as things get challenging and difficult, and as life moves on, and you face those tragedies, it'll be very difficult to navigate those in any meaningful and fruitful way. And so it's better to do that now before the tragedy hits than to wait till the tragedy hits and not have it. I'm Jason Scott Montoya. Thank you for watching.